In a world of constant distractions, attention is the new gold. Moving inside an office is inevitable, but how fried must our brains be to reach a point where we are no longer able to execute the simplest tasks just because a colleague passes by? Are modern distractions ruining our focus?
I mean, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It really forces us to look critically at the modern work environment, but honestly, more importantly, at our own cognitive resilience.
Yeah, totally. And welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. I want you to think about your own workspace for a second. Just picture the last time you were desperately trying to finish, a complex task and your train of thought was just completely derailed.
Just because someone walked past your desk to get a coffee or something?
Exactly. So today we are unpacking a really fascinating source. It's an advanced English workbook, and it actually dedicates an entire module to this phenomenon of visual and audio noise in the workspace.
Which is such a unique angle to take on office culture.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is twofold. First, we're going to tear apart this concept of visual noise to understand why it destroys our productivity and, what we can realistically do about it.
And second, because it is an advanced language workbook, we are going to elevate how we actually talk about these concepts.
Yes, breaking down the high-level vocabulary in the discussion prompts the text uses to debate this exact topic.
That linguistic aspect is incredibly valuable. I mean, we often struggle to solve workplace problems simply because we don't have the precise language to articulate what's actually failing.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay, let's unpack this. I want to dive straight into the physical environment where all this cognitive friction is happening.
The modern open plan office.
The classic open plan office. The workbook grounds this whole discussion in the story of an employee named Ronisha Bing. And they make a really deliberate point up front. She genuinely likes her job.
Right, she's highly motivated.
Yeah, this isn't a story about someone looking for excuses to slack off. She wants to perform well, but she is actively fighting her workspace because it's completely cubicle-free.
And that physical architecture is really the catalyst here. The text highlights how, in these modern environments, the partitions between desks are intentionally kept low or, removed entirely.
Just totally gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The architectural goal is to create a clear line of sight across the room.
Which, in theory, promotes transparency, right?
Yeah.
And organic collaboration. You can see everyone. Everyone can see you.
In theory, sure. But the reality of having that unbroken visual field is that you are subjected to this unrelenting stream of visual data.
And this introduces one of our core concepts from the text. When we complain about office distractions, our immediate reflex is usually to blame sound.
Oh, absolutely. The loud talker, the heavy typer.
Yeah, the humming AC unit. But Renisha observes that her inability to focus doesn't just come from what she hears. The text points out that her daily distractions actively stem from visual noise.
And that phrase, stem from, is a great piece of vocabulary to highlight.
Yeah, let's break that down. To stem from means to originate from or be caused by.
Right, so using stem from here is crucial because it forces us to trace the distraction back to its actual root cause. The loss of focus originates in the visual field.
It totally forces a paradigm shift in how we perceive workspace interference. We treat our eyes as these passive receptors, but they're actually aggressively processing massive amounts of data every single second.
And when that visual data is irrelevant to the email you're trying to write, it acts as friction. The workbook emphasizes that this visual noise poses a serious challenge.
Pose. Let's look at that word too.
Yeah, to pose, in this context, means to create or present a problem or a risk.
So visual noise isn't just a benign feature of the room. It poses a real challenge. It actively presents a threat to your focus. It demands energy to ignore.
Exactly. So what is actually generating this threat? The text brings in this workplace design specialist, Leah Stringer, to categorize the noise.
Right, and she mentions the usual suspects. Brightly painted accent walls, complex artwork, clutter on desks.
But then she drops a point that completely reframes the whole issue. She argues that the single biggest source of visual noise is human movement.
Just people being people.
Literally just people walking by. And Ronisha admits in the text that she is constantly tempted to glance at her colleagues' screens or watch them walk by.
But she frames it as a personal flaw, doesn't she?
She does. She says she's just naturally curious, like it's a lack of discipline.
Which is totally a misdiagnosis of her own behavior. Like, she thinks she has this personality quirk that makes her nosy.
But if we look at human biology, she isn't lacking discipline at all. What's fascinating here is that she's exhibiting a highly tuned survival mechanism.
I always think of the open office as being stuck inside a fishbowl.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like if you put a fishbowl in the center of a busy living room, that fish is going to dart its eyes at every single movement outside the glass. It has no choice.
There are no visual barriers.
Right. But here's my question. We are social creatures. We form communities. We collaborate. So why is just seeing another human being walking across a room so catastrophic for our concentration?
Why does the fishbowl effect shatter our focus?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the contradiction you're highlighting is a classic evolutionary mismatch. Yes, we're deeply social, but our neurological hardware wasn't developed in an office building.
Right. It was developed on the savannah over millions of years.
Exactly. As hunter-gatherers, your peripheral vision acted as your primary alarm system. If a shape moved in the tall grass at the edge of your vision, your brain demanded that you look at it instantly.
Because that movement meant either a predator or prey.
Yep, a severe threat or a vital opportunity. So your neurological circuitry is quite literally hardwired to prioritize sudden movement over whatever stationary task you're currently doing.
So when Dave from accounting walks past my desk holding a coffee mug, my conscious mind knows he's irrelevant to my spreadsheet.
But your primitive brain is screaming, movement detected, assess for threat.
Wow. My visual cortex is basically being hijacked by ancient biology.
Precisely. So when corporate architects design these rooms with clear lines of sight, flooding the space with constant human movement, they're inadvertently creating an environment that triggers biological alarm bells continuously.
We are asking employees to suppress millions of years of evolutionary instincts through sheer willpower, just to draft a memo.
Which totally explains the profound fatigue we feel by the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just that we're distracted, it's that suppressing those alarms requires an immense amount of cognitive fuel.
Every time you force your eyes back to your monitor, you're burning energy. By 3 p.m., your brain is fried because it's been subconsciously scanning for predators for 8 hours.
That is wild. That cognitive depletion is the hidden tax of the open plan office.
It really is. And knowing this, we have to look at how workplace designers are attempting to physically fix the fishbowl.
Right. The workbook transitions into the physical antidotes being applied to quiet down this visual noise.
Yeah, they mentioned these designers, Jason Salzman and Ajay Chopra, who are trying to manipulate the physical environment to lower the visual volume.
And what are their strategies?
Well, they use targeted lighting to draw focus to specific work areas rather than just washing the whole room in bright light.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they place large plants strategically to break up those clear lines of sight, like artificial thickets to block peripheral movement.
Oh, clever. And they also talk about using subdued color palettes, right?
Yes, and subdued is another great vocabulary word here. It means soft, calm, not bright or intense.
So it's not just an aesthetic choice, it's a psychological tool.
Exactly. Bright colors in nature, like a neon dart frog signal danger. By saturating an office in subdued tones, designers are trying to construct a visual background that the primitive brain categorizes as safe to ignore.
They're essentially trying to camouflage the workspace so our alarm systems stop misfiring.
Right. And Salzman says they approach design based on human needs to enhance productivity. The overarching solution is flexibility.
Creating different zones.
Yeah, vibrant, open areas for collaboration, but also isolated, private spaces with actual doors for deep work.
Which Renisha, from our story, loves. She finally has a place to retreat to. The workbook describes this as trying to strike the right balance.
Striking the right balance is the holy grail of modern workplace design.
I mean, I hear the theory, but I really struggle to accept this as a genuine solution.
How so?
Buying a few plants and painting the walls a subdued beige, it just feels like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. Are we really solving the problem, or are we just hiding from each other?
That's a fair point.
Like, if a single coworker walking by completely destroys our focus, shouldn't we be asking why our focus is so fragile in the first place?
Yeah.
Physical separation feels like an evasion of the root cause.
And that skepticism is exactly where the text takes us next. Physical design only addresses the external triggers.
Right.
To find the real culprit, we have to shift our focus to our internal mental space. We have to look at what we bring into the office with us.
Oh, this is the realization that the call is coming from inside the house.
Exactly. The workbook brings in this reflection piece, and it delivers a massive reality check. The author writes that people are quick to voice their dissatisfaction with external noise, but distraction actually starts from within.
That is a profound pivot. It's so convenient to blame the open floor plan because it absolves us of personal responsibility for our own attention spans.
Yeah, and the author admits they couldn't let go of the idea that human movement is the biggest visual noise. They write, I couldn't help but ruminate over one line from it.
Ruminate over. Let's pause on that phrase.
It's a great one.
It implies a thought that you're obsessively chewing on, turning it over and over in your mind, trying to extract meaning.
Yeah, to think deeply and repeatedly about something. And the author is ruminating over the sheer absurdity of our current state. They say they are perplexed by it.
Perplexed, meaning very confused or puzzled.
Right. They're perplexed because we've sent rovers to Mars, but we can't type a coherent sentence if someone walks by the water cooler.
So they ask, has it always been this way, or has social media made it worse?
And they argue that it's the result of active, relentless cognitive conditioning.
Through seemingly harmless daily habits,
Mm-hmm.
specifically mindless scrolling.
Yes, this is the critical mechanism. The author points to neuroplasticity. The brain adapts to the stimuli it gets most frequently.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I think of it like a smartphone battery that's degraded over time.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Imagine your brain's capacity for focus as a brand new battery. Originally, you had massive capacity. You could filter out background noise and read a dense book for 3 hours straight.
Your baseline cognitive endurance was just higher.
Exactly. But then you introduce social media. Mindless scrolling is like plugging that battery into a hypercharger while running a massive video game 204/7 for a decade.
Just constantly draining it.
Yeah. Every swipe gives you a micro hit of dopamine. Your brain learns to expect a highly stimulating piece of novel information every 3 seconds.
And over years of that behavioral loop, the physical architecture of the battery degrades. Its maximum capacity plummets.
Right, so consider what happens when you take that degraded battery and try to run a low-stimulation app, like a corporate spreadsheet.
It crashes.
It totally crashes. You try to engage in deep work, but your focus battery is so compromised that the slightest environmental load overwhelms the system.
A coworker walking by should be a low-power background process.
Exactly, you shouldn't even register it. But because your tolerance is gone, that simple visual movement instantly drains whatever tiny reserve of focus you had left.
The workbook describes this perfectly. The author writes, the aftermath is becoming too costly, though.
Aftermath. That's a heavy word.
It is. When we talk about an aftermath, we usually mean the destructive, lingering consequences of a significant event, like the aftermath of a hurricane.
So the mass adoption of endless scrolling is the event, and the aftermath is a workforce that's cognitively crippled.
Chillingly blunt, isn't it? The text says people can no longer handle basic human interaction. Even the clicking of a computer mouse makes employees completely zone out.
We are zoning out because of a plastic mouse click. That is a staggering vulnerability.
We blame the architects for not adding enough plants or subdued lighting, when the reality is our digital diets have made the presence of another living person intolerable.
We built a dopamine slot machine in our pockets, trained our brains to require chaos, and now we wonder why the physical world feels overwhelming.
Right. And this deep internal conflict sets up the most fascinating part of the source material.
Right, because this is a language workbook. It forces the learner to actively debate these concepts.
It doesn't just present info. It tests how sophisticated your thinking can become based on your English proficiency.
We are going to compare 3 specific prompt pairings from the text. Intermediate, which is B1 to B2 level, versus advanced, which is C1 to C2.
The evolution here is striking.
Let's look at the first theme, quiet versus busy workspaces. The intermediate prompt asks, do you prefer working in a quiet place or in a place with lots of people? Why?
Notice the structural limitation there. It asks for a simple, localized personal preference. Are you introverted or extroverted? It requires no systemic analysis.
But the advanced prompt changes the game. It asks, if you were designing the workplace of the future, what balance would you strike between social interaction, flexibility, and deep work?
The cognitive leap there is enormous. The language forces you out of the passive consumer role and into the active role of a systems architect.
Yeah, asking you to strike a balance demands that you acknowledge competing priorities.
You can't just say, I want a quiet room.
Yeah, sure.
You have to engineer an environment that accommodates both biology and corporate needs.
It completely shifts the burden. Okay, let's look at the second pairing. This one tackles the impact of digital media.
Right.
The intermediate prompt asks, do you think people are more distracted today than they were in the past?
Again, a binary historical comparison. You can just say, yes, because of smartphones.
Yeah.
It identifies the phenomenon, but demands zero understanding of the mechanics.
But the advanced prompt asks, how has constant exposure to digital media affected our tolerance for everyday distractions?
That prompt is surgical. The word tolerance makes it advanced. It demands you explain the mechanism of causality.
You have to synthesize the concepts we talked about. Neuroplasticity, dopamine loops, the degraded battery.
Exactly. You move from making a superficial observation to diagnosing a systemic cognitive failure.
It's like telling a mechanic, my car makes a noise, versus saying, the timing belt is slipping because of a degraded tensioner.
Great analogy.
Now, the third pairing gets genuinely philosophical. The debate between design and personal responsibility. The intermediate question is, what helps you concentrate better when you need to finish an important task?
A coping mechanism question. It accepts the environment is broken and just asks how you survive it.
Yeah.
Headphones, white noise, whatever.
But the advanced prompt asks, to what extent is workplace distraction a design problem rather than a personal responsibility problem? Should employers be responsible for creating environments that maximize focus, or should employees learn to manage distractions independently?
That touches the absolute nerve center of modern corporate culture. Whose fault is this and who is obligated to fix it?
Let's actually debate that for a second, because my instinct leans heavily toward personal responsibility.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, if I spend 4 hours a night scrolling on TikTok, degrading my own attention span until a mouse click makes me zone out, why should my employer spend $500,000 redesigning the office?
To coddle your self-inflicted cognitive fragility.
Exactly. Isn't the onus on me to delete the apps and retrain my brain?
It's a compelling argument. But let me take the corporate responsibility side.
Go for it.
Yes, your focus battery is degraded. However, the employer chose an architectural model, the open plan, that specifically weaponizes human biology against focus.
The clear lines of sight.
Right. They know human movement is the biggest visual noise. By removing physical barriers to save money, they intentionally placed you in an environment that guarantees cognitive depletion.
You can't put someone in a literal fishbowl and blame them for reacting to their survival instinct.
Exactly. The design is inherently hostile.
That is a phenomenal counterpoint. True productivity really requires an alliance. The employer must construct spaces that don't constantly trigger our threat detection systems.
But the employee must also stop chemically burning out their dopamine receptors every night.
It's a synthesis, and that's what the workbook is trying to provoke by elevating the language.
Modern challenges are dense intersections of biology, technology, economics, and psychology.
We started by looking at a simple desk and ended up dissecting the neurological impact of the digital economy. What a journey.
It really has been.
Let's recap. We defined the threat that visual noise poses to our productivity. We traced it back to the evolutionary mismatch of our Savannah hardware in a fishbowl environment.
And we looked at how designers attempt to strike a balance using subdued environments.
But we also analyzed the internal variables, the aftermath of our digital diets. We realize we ruminate over external distractions while ignoring our own cognitive tolerance.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Yeah, next time you find yourself zoning out at work, look around your workspace. Acknowledge the visual noise. But immediately after that, check your screen time report.
Because the most disruptive force in your office might just be a brain waiting for its next algorithmic dopamine hit.
And here's a final thought to ruminate over. We spend billions globally building quieter offices and buying noise-canceling headphones so we don't have to look at each other.
Right.
But if social media platforms have successfully trained our brains to be hyper-reactive to every tiny stimulus, what if the ultimate productivity hack isn't isolating ourselves further?
What if it's intentionally doing the hard work to retrain our brains to tolerate the presence of other human beings again?
Are modern distractions ruining our focus, or are they just exposing how desperately we need to practice existing in the real world? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.